If you are an estate agent, letting agent, or someone who is interested in the property market, then this, the UK Property Market Stat Show, is for you. My name is Chris Watkin, and each week I have a special guest. And returning back, I think for the sixth or seventh time, is the wonderful Steph Walker from TA UK. Thanks for joining me today, Steph.
Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Looks like lovely weather up there in the northwest.
Can you even believe it?
Can you believe it? We're filming this, ladies and gentlemen, on Wednesday the night. So when this comes out on Friday the 11th, we're not sure what the weather will be, but I hope it is as nice as it is here today in the UK. Anyway, for anyone that's not watched the show before, what we do is the show is about 1 hour long. And the first 40 minutes or so of it is looking at the UK property market, where myself and staff will grind over the numbers in terms of listings, price reductions, sales agreed, fall throughs, exchanges, house prices achieved, stock levels, the works. Then the second half, which lasts around 20 minutes, could be a bit longer, we really deep dive into a town or city's estate agents and letting agents and see which one is the best. Now this week we're going to the beautiful town of Macclesfield, which is not that far away from you, Steph, is it?
No, not at all. And we've just launched there, so I'm very, very interested.
Excellent. The show itself, that element focuses on Macclesfield. Now, if you're not from Macclesfield, you might not be interested. But what I would say is this: if you're an estate agent who suffers from competitors overvaluing, competitors doing cheap fees, and you are a better estate agent, then the bit of kit that we're going to be utilizing is a bit of kit that you could utilize yourself. And it does prove how rubbish other agents are compared to your awesomeness. Steph and myself are a bit fanboys and fangirls of this bit of kit, and we'll be showing that to you later. So if you do suffer from those, do stay for the second half of the show. Right, without further ado, let's get back. We are looking at week 13. Can you believe, Steph, week 13 of 2025? It doesn't seem like 2 minutes ago we were unwrapping the Christmas presents.
Oh, honestly, it's criminal, but just goes to show time waits for nobody.
Indeed. Now, in terms of week 13, I'll just pull up the calendar. That's Monday, the 31st of March, all the way through and including Sunday, the 6th of April. And we will be comparing week 13 with other week 13s going back to 2017. And we'll be looking at the year-to-date figures to see how the UK property market is faring. Now, what is particularly interesting, and I'll just give you the headlines, is that last week was the highest number of sales for nearly 3 years.
Whoa.
Okay, so that's not bad at all. Okay. Actually, it wasn't last week. It was not the week we're looking at now, but the week before. Week 12 was the highest week for sales. So we're looking at week 13 and see how we've done well, how week 13 has fared compared to week 12. So without further ado, let's go and have a look at the stats and we'll plow through accordingly. So what happens, ladies and gentlemen, for those, can you see the graph on the good stuff? Now, ladies and gentlemen, just before we kick off, the graphs I'm showing you here are all available to download from the YouTube description write-up, and I'm more than happy for you to use them on presentations at valuations, and I'm more than happy for you to use them internally. What I do ask specifically is if you intend to use them on social media, would you please give me a shout? The reason being is this: my daytime job is I ghostwrite property market updates on localities, and I allow those agents that I write ghostwrite for the local to use the national stats. And it would be not particularly good form for you to be publishing the same graphs that my clients, in essence, have to almost pay for. But more than happy to use them on valuations. Anyway, without further ado, let's crack on. So in terms of the listings this week, 41,260, which is the highest number of listings for many, many years. That's quite scary, actually. The average price of a property coming on the market is £460,000. Year to date, we are on 476,724 listings, which is 7% ahead of last year and 10% ahead of the average of the more normal years of 2017, 18, and 19. And I think this graph just puts it all into perspective. There is the chart there with regard to the number of listings. And again, we're looking at the more normal years of 17, 18, 19, 23, and 24. What's your thoughts on the listings? A bit of an uptick there, isn't there?
Yeah, and I'm surprised because at least half the country's on half term. So I would have thought that was a bit of a crazy week to launch lots and lots of new listings, personally. Um, but I think it goes to show well, we're in for a good fun Q2 and Q3.
I mean, we say it every week, and I was with Ben. We were with Ben Madden last week, and he says he loves boring, and this is there's no spikes or anything. And again, I know we're filming this on Wednesday night, and I know the tariffs and the Trump issues kicked in. And again, the market could go one of two ways. It could be bad news, but actually it could be good news because most banks are reducing interest rates. And the last three interest rates I think that we've had have all been great news for the market. So okay, there is a Goldilocks moment, and again, this is normally the part in this show that we pull up the stock levels. So let's go and look at the stock levels now. Okay, so hold your horses. Here we go. So we've had the stock levels. This is the new data, and all the yellows are the 31st of March going into the 1st of the next month. So on that evening of the March 31st going into the 1st of April, there were 705,728 properties, which is higher than most of the other years. Um, but just to put that in context, that figure was 1.2, 1.4 million in 2008, which was the global financial crash. So it's really important, ladies and gentlemen, agents and also buyers. I know I get messages from buyers who are really geeky about property market. It's really important to look at what's happening in the property market in terms of the stock levels, particularly of the houses that you have for sale or
Yeah.
you're going to sell because what this figure doesn't show is that if you split it down into flats, apartments, and houses, the mix, there's a lot more apartments coming on the market, but they're not selling. Are you noticing yourself with your agents that, they're putting more houses on the market?
I'd say we've sort of held steady. I think quite sensibly. We're not getting into that overpricing game. We're only taking stuff on that is really keen, it's well priced, well presented. So no, I think we're being really, really sensible about what we're doing. Only carry stuff that's going to sell. Don't be spending money on marketing stuff that isn't. And, if you look at that there, we have got lots more stock in the market than we have been used to. But I think there'll have also been a big flush out, of course, because of the stamp duty. If you read LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever, every agent is reporting they're having their, sort of top months. You would expect that to flush some of that stock out. So people have got to be going out there just listing anything, which worries me.
Yeah, and now this particular graph here shows exchanges and withdrawals, and that does include the March figures. And you're going to, a lot of people will rightly say, hold on a second, March was an absolutely cracking month for exchanges. Why is that red line not gone up? Well, what we do know is this, the exchange data that we get does take a good month for it to come through. So we've got some exchange data. And we've got the withdrawals data as well. But what we'll tend to find is that the withdrawals will peak up slightly. There's,
Yeah,
there's a bit of lag on those, but the big one will be exchanges. So we will redo that in a month's time, and they tend to settle down after about 2 or 3 months. So we'll look back, and I suspect that we will have a nice spike there
yeah,
as we will have a spike in this. And Steph, you are so right. Is look, the pink lines here are showing the percentage of homes that are leaving your estate agency books, not yours, but in terms of the whole UK.
yeah,
What percentage of them are exchanged? Now, again, a little uplift there. The rest is made up withdrawals because that's the only thing. A property can either leave an agent's book if she exchanges or she withdraws. And the uptick here is, as I said, is about 55, 56%. I expect that to be higher because of the rush through.
yeah.
But still, when we are in an industry where it is almost a flip of a coin, I say it every week. You say it every time you come on the show. You even say it when you do those wonderful posts. And ladies and gentlemen, do follow Steph. If you think I'm throw a few, and it isn't clickbait, but it is eye-catching headlines and eye-catching topics. If you think I'm a bit spicy, then she's the Tandoori Queen because because you But that's what it's about. It's about asking the right questions
Mm.
and starting a conversation. So yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
just don't see a sensible business model is not to spend lots of time and effort and money on listing stuff that, as you say, almost is a one in two chance of selling. It's just not a good business model. Makes no sense.
Now, what is particularly interesting, and I do have to do a lot more cleaning out of the anomalies because I will be challenged on this. But the agents who um, have got skin in the game, you would know them as either self-employed estate agents or personal agents. Their percentages of exchanges compared to listings is significantly higher than the corporates. And I'm not corporate bashing here, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not. But the simple fact is this, is that those agents who are taking from skin in the game, like personal agents, self-employed estate agents, and I am a massive fan. I know, obviously, Steph, you are a leader of one of the big self-employed models. But I'm not just saying this because you're here today. I've gone on record many times. If you go in with the right attitude, you will win so big. And probably even more, not probably, more importantly, your clients will win because your exchange ratios are in the 60s, whilst nationally they're in the early 50s.
I think, let's be fair to employed agents, corporate agents. A self-employed or a personal agent goes in with the sole goal of getting paid, and when they get paid, it's at the end of the transaction, right? And a corporate agent has many other completely arbitrary KPIs to hit along the way that has absolutely nothing to do necessarily with that sale. It's not their fault. I don't believe that any agent, sorry, working in a corporate estate agent goes in to work to do a bad job. It's the system that they're plugged into that absolutely doesn't work.
Almost like the Matrix, isn't it? We're plugged into the Matrix. And
Yeah.
now what I would say, ladies and gentlemen, is this, because I love my data, is that just because you go self-employed means you're going to earn lots of money and be a better agent. Because I'm telling you here and now, there are some absolute shockers out there.
There really are. Yeah.
Uh, yeah. Anyway, let's not go down that
Yeah,
rabbit
yeah,
hole.
yeah. We haven't got time for that today.
Right, let's carry on. Let's get back price reductions. So, in terms of price reductions, we are reducing about 13.5% of our stock last month. So 13.5% of the properties that had come onto the market had been reduced. Okay. The average price of a property being reduced is 408. Let's just remind ourselves the average price of a property coming on, 460. So the lower price properties having a higher percentage of them are being reduced. 26,624, which again is a massive number compared to the other months. But again, this is why I think this graph is great, but that graph is better because the stock levels are much higher.
Yeah.
Interesting. The article that I've ghostwritten for my clients this week is which um, it will talks about stock levels every single month in the town versus the number of reductions in the town and the percentage of homes. And what is particularly interesting, with for I'm doing this graph here for my agent clients, but I'm doing and the number of agents that match that almost perfectly. It's almost everything comes up and down with the tide. There's no different towns that are doing different weird things. Just it blows my mind that the whole UK property market, be it listings, be it sales, be it price reductions, just goes. There's only, in fact, there's one anomaly. I'm going to show it to you now.
Oh,
Okay.
go on.
Now I think I've showed it to you before, but there we go. Here we go. The only anomaly when it comes to the property market is this one here. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this graph here, the red line shows the average price of a property coming onto the market on a month by month, on a week by week basis. And the orange line shows the average price of a property when it went sold subject to contract. Do we know what it sold for? No, we don't. However, and I've said it before, Hamptons have statistics which prove that the difference between what the property comes on the market for and what it sells for, apart from the COVID years, is always constantly and always between 1 and 2% below the asking price. So therefore, except apart from COVID, the price paid is going to be running 1 or 2% below this orange line. So fundamentally, it's the gap, the difference. Right. You'll notice here in August that big jump there, and the
Yeah.
same happened there, and that is Southwest London.
Ah, right.
So in Southwest London, no one, you're too young for this, but when I was in my 20s, which was 30 odd years ago, so you were, there was the market went dead in summer. But now that if you look at the market doesn't really change during the summer, but it goes dead in Southwest London. And then what happens is everyone puts their houses on the market in the first 2 weeks of late August, early, and because the prices are so high, £1 million for a bog standard terraced house, it really just shoved that average up. There you go. So up, down. Anyway, boring you to death. Let's carry on. I don't know if you found that
Oh,
interesting.
love it. No, I enjoy it.
Yeah, but you're a bit of a data geek. Don't worry, no one watches the show anyway, so just having a geek fest here. Right, number of gross sales. So again, the gross sales this week, 27,645, which compared to last week, 28,055. So last week was the highest for 145 weeks. It's dipped. Oh my God. Let's get the ambulance chasers out. Let's get the doom mongers coming in. It's dropped 300 or 400. Oh my word. Let's all run around panic. Okay,
Oh my God. Well, of course that will happen. But God, remember what they were saying a couple of weeks ago? And ne'er a house will sell over the last 2 weeks after, stamp and all those things. So I think it's just what's brilliant is if we see that stock rise, and I am glad that we're holding strong with sales, but still those stock levels are still way too high for those sales that are being agreed. But it's good, it's buoyant, there's activity. Love it.
now, just look at this, ladies and gentlemen. We are about to come into the spring crazy season, right? And if you look on that graph now, look how the dips like the roller coaster that we've got. And what we are going to have, ladies and gentlemen, is three dips. Okay, you've got the two bank holiday weekends, and you've got Easter, and it is going to be a roller coaster. So don't worry if sales drop to early 20s. They'll then bounce back up and then they'll bounce back down again. And so just be aware of that. And some people will tag on the worries of the tariffs and things like that. Again, if it gets juicy, I'll tell you here and now, ladies and gentlemen, interest rates are coming down. Okay. You're going to say, well, surely inflation's going to go up in America. Yes, it will. Will that come over to us? Eventually it will. Not that much though. And it will be 6, 12, 18, well, more like 12, 18 months time. That's the way these economics work.
And
So
also, just for a little asterisk there, for us up in the north, flipping a look at this sun, that will have a slight dampener on activity because people are like, oh my God, I don't know whether I'm going to get another sunny day this year. I'm going to go and enjoy myself and I'll
you
back
Northerners do get down that pub. Although I know you're in the nice part of the northwest, so you'd be probably down that fancy wine bar in that village that you live in. But
Yes, frequently, but every single Scouser has already got the shorts and the flip-flops out. Gotta love a bronzy. Gotta love a bronzy.
oh dear, God help the Weatherspoons in Crosby and Liverpool. Right. But ladies and gentlemen, remember, okay, a lot of this is sentiment driven. That's why I'm happy for you to print off and use these graphs and use them. If the newspapers love, if I produce anything that is mildly optimistic or not optimistic, but look, hey, it's doing all right, kids.
Yeah,
Papers won't touch it.
no.
As soon as there's a whiff of bad news, they're on it like a tramp on chips, and they're all over it. And so, when the newspapers publish sales down, whip this graph out. Of course, it's going down. So we'll have three dips, dip, 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 and then a slight drift of Rooney off. We'll have another dip there. That's always the August. That's August. God dear, August, end of the summer. Can you believe it? That's the August dip. And then off we go. Right. Okay. So let's just remind ourselves year to date, 342,538 gross sales, which is 13% higher than last year and 23% ahead of 17, 18, and 19.
Nice.
Average price, as I said, oh, average price coming on the market, 364. Now, let's just remind, there you go. That put it into context. See the turquoise line
Mm.
drifting down. So we've got the greenish line, houses coming on the market going quite upwards like that. And we've got the average price of a property selling. So we're not saying the average £460,000 house is selling for 364. We're not saying that. We're saying of the homes that came on the market, that's the average price that they came on the market of. And of the 60%-ish of the ones that do go sold subject to contract, 60, 65, it's somewhere around there. The price is so the cheaper ones are selling. Hence, we look at this graph here. That gap's rising. It's over 20%. Well, it's actually nearer 25. That's a bit that worries me. Bigger houses prices don't sell so much, and are you overcooking them? So there you go.
Oh, again,
26.
people are just saying, I quite clearly, well, I think it's a combination of there are more personal or self-employed agents in the market, so those corporates are feeling in some areas a little bit of competition. Corporates have nothing to compete against. What are they bringing to the table? Absolutely zilch. The only thing they can do is overpromise on price. But it's great for us self-employed and personal agents because we'll pick up those listings on the downturn at the right price. We'll market it to shit and get a 5-star review. So cheers, corporates. Keep on doing what you're doing.
You are a bit naughty
That was a
there.
bit salty. That was a bit salty.
There we go. Don't worry. You're just passionate, and I'm not. The Resi sell-through rate. This is another stat. This is
Mm.
the what percentage of the homes that you have on the books are you selling on a monthly basis? Okay. So that is a graph we chuck out every month. And that, as I said, is hovering around that 16% mark. So again, nothing untoward here. Again, very cyclical. So December, and then we go up, and then we have a little look. They're all the shape. Look, it goes up, bit of a wobble over, a bit of a over Easter, and then a slow jump down, and then we have a nice little jump up, little ski jump in the autumn, and then down for Christmas. Up, wobble down, down, down. There you go. They're all the same. So, isn't it interesting that you would have sworn that 100% everything you had on the books in COVID or post lockdown was selling, and we were only shifting 30% of the sales of our stock. Fascinating. There's another graph for your
The
total.
same back then, though, wasn't it? Because people were then going, "Oh, let me just dream up this absolutely insane price." Um, you just sold your good stuff more quickly and better. But it is the same every single year, and this is what maddens me about people and agents that are going out and overpricing. Look, we can literally plot this on these graphs. In fact, you don't even need to plot anything. Christopher Watkin plots the year on the graph.
I mean, let's just very kind of you say. Let's look at look. We were shifting. There were still withdrawals in the crazy years
Yeah.
of 21 and 22. Look, the highest it ever got to was 72, 73%. In Australia, ladies and gentlemen, 72% sale rate is considered absolutely dire. It's in the 90s. So just, you were, I love it. I'm going to take that one off you. We were just selling the good stuff back quicker. That's all we were doing. There was still plenty of crap that wasn't selling. So
And
again,
and just another asterisk on Australia, lots of people need to go and have a look at how Australians run their businesses because 100%, well, let's say 98% of the sellers that they get on as well will be having some form of contribution into marketing.
I've never been, ladies and gentlemen, but there's something called AREC, AREC, and my advice is I know a few agents tend to go, and you can put it through as a work expense if you do it the right way. I really must try and talk Mrs. Watkin into going to that. But the bottom line is this is that if you can actually plan ahead, you can go and see some agents before or afterwards, and really, just a lot of it comes down to mindset, ladies and gentlemen. We are our own worst enemies. And don't get me wrong, there are some crap agents in Australia,
Yeah.
absolute dyers. All we're seeing is the cream. But then what is interesting is this: there are some agents, lots of agents. Our cream of the agents are as good as theirs. The issue is that they're very good at personal branding and getting their name out there, whilst our good ones tend to be hunker down. But anyway, for you geeky people that love your graphs, this one here is showing us the the blue line shows us stock level listings for the year. Sorry, blue shows listings for the month. They're the blue bar charts, and the red line with the yellow glow shows the percentage of sales agreed as a this start again. It shows us the sales agreed expressed as as a percentage of listings. What do I
Yeah.
mean by that? We put 100 houses on the market and 80 sell that month. That's an 80% red line. Sorry, I'm mixing my words up today. There we go. I was out with the boys last night. There was 52 of us at a curry house. Can you believe
Oh,
it?
that sounds
Yeah.
like carnage.
It was a bit of fun, but we go out every 6 or 8 weeks.
Nice.
Yeah, a quiet one is normally 40 and a decent one is mid 50s. Yeah, and it's like trying to organize cats, but there we go.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, right, fall throughs. Fall throughs are still hovering around the early 6,000s. The fall through rate is around the 22, 23 mark.
Yeah.
Think we've got the exact figure here, 23.7. Number of fall throughs, as I said, 6,500. But I think this is the more important one is what percentage of your sales pipelines, unit wise, did you fall through? And again, we are hovering around that 6% mark. So, you know, and what is anecdotal evidence suggests, and I've got the stats, but I like to wait a while just so it catches up. Everyone was saying that we will get lots of sales fall through because of the stamp duty. I've looked at the evidence, ladies and gentlemen. No, there's the withdrawal levels. I think I would say are about 4% higher than I would expect, which is nothing. Now,
No.
I will just say I will check that back in a couple of weeks just to see that there's nothing come through. Anything on that before we go to net sales?
All I'd say is I saw, and I know LinkedIn can be a bit of an echo chamber, but I saw a lot more conveyancers talking about, no, I didn't take that case, no, I didn't take that file, no, I told that client no. Whereas with previous sort of stamp duty cliff edges, I don't think we were all probably as proactive as we needed to be when we were, just agreeing stuff for fun, thinking, get it through on a wing and a prayer.
I must admit, I've been really impressed with conveyancers this time. And yeah, so well done, boys and girls,
Yeah,
on that.
absolutely.
Okay, net sales this week. Let's look at the net sales. So just bring that back. Hold on. Share. Right, and share it. Are we not sharing? Okay, hold on. I might have to stop sharing and then bring it back again. There we go. So net sales this week, which is number of gross sales less the fall throughs this week. And we are on 21,082. Okay, year to date, we are on 261,242, which is 10% higher than last year and 16.6% higher than the averages of 17, 18, and 19. And this graph here just shows you the white line shows you the net sales for 2025 with all of the years, including the crazy years of 21 and 20. And again, this graph always amazes me that the effect of a lockdown with the yellow line and the effect of the crazy year of 21 with that green line. And
Yeah.
still look, even in those green lines, that green line, we still had the two bank holidays and Easters.
Yeah.
So it's again, everything just moves up and down. Okay. And again, there's the Easter one. That's not
Yeah.
Easter. What's it called?
Um,
August.
August.
Yeah, no, because I do like my Cadbury's cream eggs, and that's the best thing about Christmas is that Cadbury's cream eggs. So go and buy them more, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously not in Grantham, because
But I
um,
mean, it's almost like you could kind of try and predict what may happen in your market. It's almost like,
indeed. And ladies and gentlemen, we do produce these sort of graphs in a slightly different while for agents in the town to make you look like the most local knowledgeable agent in the town. Right, okay. Let's just have a quick look at some other little mini graphs we've got for you. Some of you like these two ones: gross sales as a percentage of listings, and price changes as a percentage of listings. So again, that's higher, but we did
Mm.
expect that. Looked at those already, but again, you need to almost take with a pinch of salt the last couple of months. The pound per square foot figures are something I'm very passionate about. The line that you should be looking at is the orange line, and the orange line is the pound per square foot at sale agreed. Why is that important? Because that follows the land registry almost perfectly but the land registry's got a 5 or 6 month lag on it. So if you want to know where the bottom of the market is or the top of the market, we can tell the land registry 5 or 6 months in advance. So
Yeah.
nice. So just be aware of that. Um, Agents pipeline up to 467, but again, we've got to make there's some exchanges to come off that figure, so
Yeah.
we will revise that one, okay? Because you need to know a lot went through and would have been we'll catch up on that. A couple of extra graphs. The green line shows the number of properties sold subject to contract in your pipeline. The orange line shows the number of properties for sale, and that just shows us where that is, and then we proportionalize it there. Again, these can all be downloaded. Right, I think we're there at the end of the first part of the show. Any comments before we go to Macclesfield?
Oh gosh, just please, please don't carry stock for the sake of having stock. Price well, have honest conversations with sellers, be proud of being, somebody with a little bit of integrity about what you do, and you'll probably bank more. Well, actually, in fact, look at the stats. You will bank more, and you will have spent less to do it. Just
And
makes sense.
you've got to fall in love with losing properties. You've got to detach yourself from the outcome of, if they don't choose you. And then for God's sake, it scares me how agents then say, give me a call if you don't get on. Well, they're not going to call you back because the people would rather die than feel embarrassed.
Yeah,
So you've got to give them a reason why they should keep coming back. Right.
absolutely.
And one of the best things I can advise you do, ladies and gentlemen, is if a property comes onto the market like theirs, why don't you WhatsApp it to them, Mr. and Mrs. Smith? I know you're selling a 3 bed semi. This is a 3 bed semi that's just come on the market with XYZ that's on your estate. I thought you might like to know. But also at the same time, why don't you text them properties that come on the market that they're looking for? Okay. And you're going to say, well, that takes time. Of course, it takes bloody time. It's hard work. You're charging them thousands of pounds. If you want to do some because it scares me. Most agents just think estate agencies whack it on Rightmove and see how we get on. No, you actually got to go off your backside.
Absolutely. But also power of no. Power
Oh,
of no.
you've got yeah, but you've got to give them a reason to come back to you, and you do that by helping them, not
Mm.
by chasing them, not by after 10 weeks. How are you getting on? You might as well just have a filter saying, "I'm chasing you for the business." Oh, anyway, right. That's the end of the first part of the show, ladies and gentlemen. We're now going to go to Macclesfield. So let's see. Let's go to Macclesfield. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are using a bit of kit called Insight. Insight is a platform, one of many platforms that the firm 20EA use. And those platforms are called different things. But Insight is a bit like Rightmove Plus on steroids with a couple of glitter balls and lasers coming out of it. It really is truly exceptional. The insightful data, hey, it's called Insight for nothing, isn't called Insight for nothing, is truly exceptional. And if you really are a data geek and you want to measure yourself against competitors and yourself, that's good. But what is particularly good is this. I said to you at the top of the show, if you're suffering from agents that overvalue, underpromise, cheap fees, this is independent third-party data, which shows that if you have got the stats to back it up, that you can be in the property. And when when the silver tongue cavalier from the other big agency is giving it some of this, you can say, yes, yes, but here's the facts. Now, the way you do that is really, really important, the way you get that across. And if anyone wants to pick my brains on how to use this data that keeps you A, the right side of the law, but B, actually works, because if you just throw this data out, it doesn't work. You have to package it in a certain way to remain legal and for it to land, then do not hesitate to give me a call. Um,
And it is powerful. The second largest market leader in my area, on average, loses their clients 27 grand.
Powerful stuff, ladies and gentlemen. Powerful stuff. You have to package it in the right way.
Yeah,
But
I haven't posted about that.
no, no, because I think that you might that would be an incendiary hand grenade throwing
It
in.
would. It would. Even for me.
Well, look, I bet you could do it not necessarily to gain listings, but you could do it in your with your estate agent's hat on when you're
Mm.
talking to other agents. Again, do follow Steph, ladies and gentlemen, especially on LinkedIn if you want some interesting opinions. And if it hurts, then probably you're guilty of what you're saying.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's go and have a look at the stats. What normally happens is this: I just keep rambling. If Steph, you see something, you jump in, or I ask you questions, or you ask me questions. Here we go. Right then. So before we do kick off, though, I think it's important. 20 EA Insight is a paid for platform. There is a free version which you can use, but the data is quite limited time wise. I think it's no more than 3 months. There's a paid for version where you can have up to 10 postcodes for a very nominal amount. I'm not going to mention the figures, ladies and gentlemen, because I don't get commission. I don't get paid by 28. Are they friends of mine? Huge friends. They give me this platform which enabled me to do all the stats that you have done so far. And they are considered gold standard stats, okay? All the big agencies have it. And again, there's very few that they do see anomalies, and I can spot anomalies. That's just weird where my brain works. And I've only ever spotted a couple of anomalies that got sorted out really quick. And it was really minor stuff. And it was Scotland, actually. What is particularly interesting is this, Steph, is the number of exchange. There's a very large agency in London that is the almost like whose name is very reminiscent of an urban creature who is okay. Okay. And the number of exchanges that that they said this agent had versus what was in the PLC report, four off. I mean, you've got to admit that is red hot stuff.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah. So what I would say, ladies and gentlemen, is this is gold stuff. There's always going to be anomalies. If you've got anomalies, give 20 a call. But they do like a 10 postcode area, do a regional, and they do a national. And you get all the data. You get IC. You just whatever area, geographical area. So without further ado, the people. So let's go and have a look and see who the agents of the big boys and girls are of Macclesfield.
Love it.
Right. Okay. We're going to switch off new homes because I'm not that. I think that messes the figures up. And the postcodes that we're looking for is SK10 and SK11. Macclesfield is kind of split into two. Now, I will just say that in that Macclesfield, there's two little baby towns, little baby towns, which are included in that. And I know there's one agent in here that is really dominant in those. So we can actually split it down to SK10, whatever. But we're not here to do that because we'll bore people to death. We're only going to be 20 minutes doing this. So, but what I would say is if that agency, you know who you are, you've got two offices. If you want to give me a shout, we can potentially have a look at some minutiae stuff. Right. So we're going to start off mainly with residential sales. There's a bit of lettings at the end. So without further ado, the average price of a property that have come onto the market since the 1st of January 2020 up until and including the 8th of April 2025, 452,000, which is quite expensive for the Northwest. And let us have a look at how the agents have been performing in terms of their sales. So immediately Holden and Prescott, their average price is 264. So they are obviously at the lower end, the volume agent. I would say looking at their market share, Steph, that has been slightly that they had a bad 22. You can see that
Mm.
drift off there. And they've been pretty even keeled there at around 12%, but their market share has dropped. Okay. Let's go and look at Gascoigne Hallam. So their average price is 550, which is more in line with the well, it's slightly higher. So they're more, I would say, more of a Marks and Spencer's knocking on the door of Waitrose estate agent. I suspect that is a COVID spike. It is. So again, we have to take that with a slight pinch of salt. So if we can see here, their general market share has seen a slight growth there from around the 10% mark to around the 15% mark. So well done there. Let's go and look at Jordan Fishwich, which are a regional agent based in the Northwest. Average price 306. So again, they're at the lower to middle end of the property market, but their market share is growing from around that 5 or 6% mark to around the 10 or 11% mark. So well done there. Do you know any of these agents, by the way?
Gascoigne's, Jordan Fishwick. Yeah.
Okay. Holmes Nadine or Nadine. That's yellow, so you might need to just move up your contrast, ladies and gentlemen. But that looks like they were growing in 2020, 21,
Yeah.
23, but have had a bad 24 and have drifted downwards. Okay.
Mm.
Bridgefords.
Hello,
Okay.
Blue Eyes.
Okay. So they have good months and bad months. Okay.
Lower house price. Doesn't surprise me though.
Okay. Retrains are part of the LSL group. Their market share appears to be on a slight drift down in 2020 and has remained pretty stable around the 5 to 7% mark going there. Just a slight drift down there, not a huge
A
amount, but
really low average house price.
270. But again, what you've got to remember is this, is that Macclesfield Centre is quite inexpensive, but the areas around it,
Yes.
footballers
Very
have.
true.
So what we will look at in a second, ladies and gentlemen, is we will look at the upper quartile, the posh end, just to see, because this is going to be, it's really weird that there are some agents here that are, yeah, I'll tell you, this is almost black and white. This is fascinating. Right, Whitaker and Biggs, Neil dropping, guys, 297. PB, slight drifting down. The Good Estate Agent, you're doing well. Well done, guys.
Self-employed individual.
Michael Hart's growing. Well done, Michael Hart. Northwood, slight growth. Butters John B. They were bought out by Hart about 5 or 6 years ago. They're drifting downwards. Harvey Scott. Jackson Stops. Posh, look at that, 2.1.
Nice.
EXP.
Come on. Come on, the self-employed.
Look at that, there you go. Stuart Rushton's Strike. Again, they've finished because they go to Purple Bricks. Savills. We'll just have a quick whiz through down to number 25. Okay.
Mm.
Okay, so yeah, now there looks like this almost looks like a game of two halves. So we're going to split this up in the banding. So let's do the upper quartile. So
Yeah.
okay, it's not really the upper. Okay, upper quartile is 600,000. And now all of a sudden things do change something serious. So we've got Gascoigne Hallam and Holmes Nadine are back up, and yeah, it looks like the big agents who were getting the volume. So that just shows you that. So let's just take a photograph of that because my memory just tend to go to mush when I'm recording. Here we go. So that's your 600 grand and above. Now let's do everything below 600 grand and see who the mummies and daddies are. Here we go.
I mean,
So
Gascoigne Halman being a number three and then number one for the upper quartile, they've got, a really good branch network around the sort of
that's
SK area.
That's a nice spread. Jordan Fishwick, obviously lower end. Gascoigne Hanlon, like you say, they're there. Uh, Savills were number 4 in the posh agents. Bridgefords were number 5 in the posh agents. Stewart and Rushton. So this is clearly showing to me is apart from Gascoigne Hallam, you've got your inexpensive agents and you've got your POS agents, and there's no crossover, which is quite common. Okay. There is only one location, ladies and gentlemen, in the UK of a major town where the volume agent is also the posh agent, the number one posh agent. That's Exeter.
Oh,
Yeah, there you go. You learn something every day.
but I
Um,
do think if you have access to this tool, And you're going out against another agent and you're trying to niche, or if you're a personal agent and you think, right, I'm going to invest in something like this just to give me an edge, you can almost be guiding your clients or potential clients where they should be going. So you're pitting yourself against the correct competition.
Yep. I mean, look, you can,
Conversation people wouldn't have, I don't think.
especially the next screen, which is our favorite screen. You
Yes.
you can, if you know you're going up against a three-bedroom semi and it's in a certain price range, you can click the price range. But
Yeah.
let's just, before we do that, let's just have a quick. I always like to have a look at the last 12 months because there's going to be some agents who are newbies. And as you can see there, EXP are
Well
coming.
done.
Yep, okay. And you've got a new one, but again, it's just early days yet.
Yeah.
Agency,
Yeah,
okay.
literally a couple of weeks.
Bless. Good stuff. Good luck on that one. Get your name out there.
Go
Get
on. Go on, Kira. Go on.
good stuff. Right. I hope you'll tell Kira that we're talking about her on this show.
Oh,
Good.
absolutely.
Bless. Right. Okay. So that just shows you there that if there's any new ones coming up on the thing, let's just have a quick look at EXP. Okay. Yep. Okay. I know it starts at 2, so it never looks brilliant, but that is a decent growth. Looks like you've had a tough Q1, but I'm sure you'll sort that out. Have a great lot of love for you. Right, and let's move on now. This
That
this
is just one thing for personal and self-employed agents, by the way. You'll have been concentrating so much on getting that turn in Q1. This is super important times. Get out there, knock doors, get yourself a little bit uncomfortable almost with the stock that you're carrying. Only good stock though. Don't fall off if you've banked a load of money in Q1 thinking that the rest of the year is going to follow suit. You need to get generating your leads.
It's a classic one, isn't it? You're tinkering around with the engine, but you're not putting the petrol in it.
Yeah.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Right, okay. There's a lot of data on here, but there is some absolute pure gold. Okay. Um, what are we looking at? Now, what I've done here is I'm just looking at the top 20 estate agents, just the ones that are based in Macclesfield or those that have had a reasonable numbers. So I've
Yeah.
removed all the agent from Manchester that's put all the two houses on the market in the last couple of years or something. So what we're looking at here is this. We're looking at for the last 2 years. I want you, I know this is really hard, agents. I want you to ignore your new instructions, your new instruction market share, your sold subject to contract, and your sold contract percentage. I want you to ignore that. The true gold, ladies and gentlemen, is in these four columns here. Remember what we said at the start of the show. A property only leaves an estate agent's books if she exchanges or withdraws.
And it's listings for show, completions for dough.
Love that. Rock and roll. So if you're Gascoigne Hallam and you add up your percentage of exchanged, 65.13, and you add up your withdrawn, 34.87, that's 100%. So what Gascoigne Hallam in the last 2 years have had 456 properties leave their books. 297 plus 159,
Yeah.
of which 159 of them have been withdrawn, which means for every 100 houses you put on the market, 65.13 you've been paid on. So therefore, if you're a neg or the boss, you've had 159 times whatever your average fee is walk out the door. The average for the top 80, top 20 estate agents is that in the last 2 years, 67.46% of properties in Macclesfield that have left estate agents' books, you have been paid on and the homeowner has moved. Well, it's 32. So that is quite a decent figure.
That's
Okay,
not bad.
considering the national figure is 53, 54. Okay, but the devil is always in the detail. Okay, Holmes Nadine, 58.84. Now, I will just say for the record, I think Holmes Nadine were in the posh areas, weren't they? Yes, they were.
Mm.
Okay. The posh properties do have a lower propensity
Yeah.
to shift, to sell. But that's the wonderful thing about Gascoigne Hallam is that they've been complemented by the cheaper stuff.
Yeah.
Now, we could, in theory, if we wanted to, we could just have a look at the posh range. Let's just have a Okay. And now all of a sudden you can see what, the exchange ratios really do come down. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is how you can play with this data to show you that actually not all, it's not all end of the world, but actually I just spotted something. Hold on. But even if you just look at the 600, well, oh, right, here we go. The 600 range, look, the numbers get a lot closer, 48.54, although Stuart Rushton's done really well at 73.
Mhm.
Well done. Let's just slice off these and see if anything happens. I'm loving Stuart Rushton's numbers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay. Well, let's just keep going. We're looking at the exchange levels. So now all of a sudden over £1 million and the numbers do get, but there's not many numbers there. So we have to take that with a pinch of salt.
Yeah.
Right. Let's come back. Here we go. So
Look at their EXP and the Good Estate Agent, both self-employed. Really great exchange percentages. Love that.
we got the corporates, Bridgeford's at 60.64. Jordan Fishwick and Gascoigne's are more regional players, but I'm really impressed with Jordan Fishwick at 79. But again, they were at the lower end of the price range. Okay. So that you can play with this to your heart's content, but what you can do is this again, if you're going to a house that's say 250 to 300, you can have this bit of kit. And now all of a sudden you can say, if Michael Hart, Mrs. Miggins, you have a 95% chance of getting your house sold with me compared to the 3 out of 4 chance with all the other agents.
Yeah.
Good agent, look, 100%, well done.
Wow. Yeah.
EXP 82, but there's some stuff in the 90s there. So again, you can use this data to your heart's content. Please, please be careful the way you publish it, because if you publish it in the wrong way, you will get clobbered by the ASA. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So we'll just have a quick look. Okay.
Do you know
Who's
what I also think it's useful for though as well? There's many agents out there operating blindly. Do I have a niche? Do I not have a niche? Most even don't even think about it. This can tell you, this can keep you honing in on your niche, which will be the best business and the easiest business to win, and the business that will pay you the best fee.
so right? You're so right. Right. We'll just have a quick look at price changes. I'm highlighting EXP at the moment. They're on a low 21.9. The good agent, again, you said at the start, it's in their interest to get the property on the right price. They have some of the lowest price changes,
Yeah.
14 and 21. Let's look. Reeds Rains, small corporate, 42. We've got a Gascoigne Hallam, 43. Guys, nearly 1 in 2 houses that you are, but their exchange ratio is not bad. It's not the best. Yeah, hold on. Let's just
I mean
see.
that's just like they're a decent outfit. They're not like
Yeah,
setting the
but
world on fire, but they're, doing all right, I'd say.
look, you've got Jordan Fishwick with an exchange ratio of 79, but they only reduced 26. So there's a direct correlation between a high exchange ratio and a low price change. Let
And
me
I also think some of that as well, if we look into that metrics, Gascoigne Halma might be going, well, I want some vanity listings. I'm going to take some of them more expensive ones. Some of them aren't going to sell. Where Jordan Fishwick's kind of like, I'm in the lower end of the market. I'm owning it and I'm cracking on and I'm shifting stuff. It's obviously also easier to comp out a cheaper property because more of them sell.
Indeed. So the pull through rates, the average is 24.69. It looks quite nice and tight there. 18. Who's on 18? Reed's Range, you've got a low fall through rate, which is good to see. Okay. Hence your exchange ratio is really high.
One there at 14 as well.
So yeah, okay, and quite high price changes. So what that's telling me there is, and we've got the overvaluing screen in a second, is that Reed's Rains are probably putting them on at a slightly too high a price, but they're working their stock really quickly because they subsequently get through to exchange, and we'll
Yeah.
see if the numbers prove that in a second. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, this is a fascinating. This is my stat of 2024, right? If a property sold in 2024 and it went sale agreed within 25 days, the chances of that sale subsequently exchanging were 94%.
Oh,
If a property took more than 100 days to get to sale agreed, that the chances of that sale subsequently going through to exchange went from 94% to 56%.
Wow.
So you've either got over a 9.5 out of 10 chance. So this is why keenly pricing properties is so vital, because if you get it on at the right price, she'll sell quickly and she'll get through to exchange and you will get paid and the homeowner will love you to bits and the homeowners move to the next chapter of their life. If you give them a vanity metric to hit your KPIs, A, your chances of selling drop off, and B, if it does sell, your chances of it getting through to exchange go from 9.5 out of 10 to just over 5 out of 10.
Anybody that's out there valuing homes, employed, self-employed, whatever, needs to record that, needs to just have you playing that on a little video so that when you sit in front of that client that goes, "Oh, but I'm in no rush though." Yes, you are. If you want the best price and the better chance of actually moving home, you are in a rush, Mr. Seller. Otherwise, don't waste my time. Why am I even here? In a nice way.
In a nice way. Right, let's move on. We've got more Stadaroonies to look at.
Love it.
Right, so what have we got here, ladies and gentlemen? We have looked at the last 2 years worth of exchanges. When I say we, 20EA have, the last 2 years of exchanges, right? That's it. So the order they're in, they've just put it on instruction levels just for the hell of it, all right? But that's the only reason why, okay? So we know who the big boys and girls are compared to the smaller ones. What they then do is this. They have an AVM, an automated valuation model, like a Valpal, but their own. And they have a figure for every house in the UK, and then they match that against what you put the property on the market for. Okay. So the average for all agents, including the ones that are out of town, 0.89. So therefore, there's some nice tight valuing there, which is good to
Yeah.
see. So on average, Gascoigne Hallam are reducing, sorry, not reducing, as Gascoigne Hallam are putting their properties on at 0.89% on average. So they looked at when you put the property on the market out, they looked at what the AVM was at that date, and the average at the on listing was 0.89. What's that telling me? Okay, it's telling me that the bigger agents are not overvaluing, but as we go to the smaller agents, they do tend to value. But nothing, this is nothing silly. 1.93, 1 point, if you were down in London, this would be up here at 4 or 5%. And we have seen towns, we've seen some towns where everyone's overvaluing. Okay, so that's big, well done, ladies and gentlemen, in Macclesfield.
Yeah, I
If
like it.
Yeah, they're nice and tight on your vowels. Okay, Bridgeford's probably a bit fruity, but never mind. Right, price achieved. What price did you achieve from the original asking price? And Gascoigne's 4.83, Holden Prescott 3.67. Pardon me. As you go down, you can see how that number changes. So the first one is the overvaluing out compared to the AVM model, the automated valuation model. The second one
Yeah.
is what did you achieve from your original asking price? And again, we can always go back and look at who is price changing. And again, isn't it interesting? Gascoignes and Holdens are the big price reducers. Okay.
Yeah.
But Jordan Fishwick, their price reductions are at 26 and they have a fantastic exchange level and they are not overvaluing. They're at 0.54. So the problem with percentages is that most people don't get them because the net effect is that minus that. So what happens is this. Instead, because people are aware of pound notes, remember what Steph said in the show about half an hour ago. If you go with another agent, you get X 100, whatever, 14 grand less, whatever the number. The numbers are relevant at this stage because that's Steph's patch and this is Macclesfield. If everyone put on the same £500,000 house, what would each agent achieve? Now, the average agent would achieve 487,000.
Yeah.
Here, we have some ranges here. I mean, look at Bridgeford's. Bridgeford's could say, Mrs. Miggins, I get £12,000 more than the average agent in that.
Imagine going in to say that on a valuation. Like,
And as you can see on the stats here, ladies and gentlemen, there are some quite fruity numbers in there. And I'll let you look at all of those. What is particularly impressive is Jordan Fishwick. is that they get £505 more. That doesn't sound a lot, but if I was going up against other agents in this list, but look, EXP, the guy and girl who I don't know who the EXP agent is in Macclesfield.
I don't. But look, EXP and the good estate agent, two self-employed agents, they're going to get you seven and a bit more for your property. So actually, if I was that agent, I'd be saying average fee in the town might be 1.25%. Great. I also want half of that on top. I want a performance fee because I'm going to get you more. So I want to share in that success.
And remember, that's 7,556 over the Macclesfield average. If you compared it to some of the other agents, that soon turns into 14 grand.
Nice.
Okay. The
They
power of
just love data.
that's the magic thing is, ladies and gentlemen, is that data is extremely powerful if used well. At the moment, if you try and fight an agent fire with fire, these are bigger agents, incumbent agents. If you try and play their game, you will fail. But if you go in there, and again, the way to do it is to use you must use emotion first, because that's the key that unlocks the door to the human mind. So you
Yeah.
tell a story of another agent that's overvalued. You tell a story that's similar, not identical, but similar to the other agent. Story the not the story of you tell the story of someone else who got their fingers burnt with another agent
Yeah.
that's similar to the person that you're doing the val on. So you've got to have these stories in your head. They must be truthful. Don't necessarily have to be true, just truthful. Okay. And then once you've got emotional buy-in, you can then hit them with this, ladies and gentlemen. This is worth this is worth your gym membership. All right. Not that I go to the gym. So I have other skills in life. Did you know I'm the reigning British beer mile champion for the round table? Yeah, I know.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, athletic strap, pint go round. Yeah, yeah, I am. Anyway, let's less joviality, ladies and gentlemen. The power of data is if you use data well, you will win so big. And if I was EX
Power of being informed.
and if I was that EXP agent, please do, give EXP headquarters a shout, see if you can have access to it or get your own if you
100%.
can. I
Yeah.
know some EXP agents have their own. Right, let's just have a quick look at, oh, bloody hell, look at this. This is amazing. So this shows you how quickly you sell the houses. So EXP, the top 10 agents are set new instruction to sale agreed 44 days. The average in Macclesfield is 71. Jordan Fishwick, 48 days to get new instruction to sale agreed. The average is 71. So, and then how quickly are we getting sales through? 107 days subject to contract to completion, whilst the average is 119. Most of those are probably the size. They're roughly the same size because they're going
Yeah.
to be, but it just shows you, like the Gascoigne Hallam, 84 days to get a buyer versus 44 days, month and a half.
And again, it's backing up the quicker that you sell, the better the price that you're going to end up with. So
It-
it all feeds into that. So, those people that I'm not in a rush. Oh no, but you are though. If you want to
because,
actually move,
yeah, because if they go, I want to try the market, well, then you're wasting my time. Sorry.
yeah, you're wasting both of our times.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, remember the stat, if it takes more than 100 days to find a buyer, even if it does find a buyer, the chance of it going through to exchange, you get paid are much lower. So are we here to list or are we here to get the properties exchanged? Right. Finally, let's look at a little bit of lettings. Always like to see a little bit of lettings.
Hmm.
There's not much data on the lettings, unfortunately, but what we can do is just have a quick look at the average rent. The average rent in 2020 and early 21, 912, and in the last year or so, it's been 1,400.
Oh, crikey.
Okay, big one is open rent. Ladies and gentlemen, if open rent were a letting agent, numbers 2 to numbers 14 or 15 would still not be bigger than open rent. That's scary.
And why do you say what is the thing that's made open rent grow so quickly, Chris?
Well, before I answer that question, here's a stat that'll blow your mind. I know I bang on about it all the time, so you'd have heard it, but some of the ladies and gentlemen watching this might have not. 51.2% of the properties that Open Rent put on the market last year were previously on the market with a high street estate agent. Now, some of you are going to say, "Oh, but Chris, some agents are leaving Rightmove and going on to Open Rent." Ladies and gentlemen, go and look at Rightmove on the number of agents they have, and the number is going up. Yeah, yeah, there might be one agent in your town that's gone from a Rightmove account to an Open Rent. Yeah, there always is. Fundamentally, the number of agents that Rightmove have is going up. It is not going down. And when you consider Open Rent now, so Open Rent we're hovering between 5 and 10, and at the moment they're knocking on the door of anywhere between 10 and 15%. Nationally, that figure has gone up. That's about Nationally, it's gone from 5% around 2020 to around 17%. You asked me why it's done that. Well, there's the external influences of the taxation and
Yeah,
agent and landlords being squeezed with the monies. I'm aware of that. But I'm of the opinion that agents are really, really bad at showing value. Letting agents only ring up their landlords when there is a problem.
yeah,
Okay, we're like the fabled swan who's gracefully going through the lakes, but underneath they're flapping that. They don't get to see the 170 pieces of legislation. And my advice to what I teach agents is that they use data to show what's happening in the market, but also to sit down and go through what's happening to their property, their portfolio, and how it's comparing to others. And that's what we need to be doing. We're called property managers. We're not called rent collectors and ring you up with a problem as.
but think about it. You know when you get a puppy, and some people do like clicker training. So you do the clicker, it gets a treat. You do the clicker, it gets a treat. So you're conditioning the dog to do something for something else. So if you're basically conditioning your landlord to expect bad shit news from you, if that's all you ever contact them saying.
Yeah. So they say, well, why am I giving 100 quid a month to that? I can sort that out.
Yeah,
Not
exactly.
realizing that they're going to come a cropper when it comes to legislation. I do believe that the Renters' Right Bill is going to give massive opportunity to letting agents if you go with the right mindset. Okay. Absolutely. But what are you doing to hoover up landlord's details? Are you on Are you on Open Rent and putting in getting their contact details? Are you on other websites that with private landlords hoovering up the telephone numbers? Because they're going to be running around like headless chickens soon with the Renters' Right Bill, and why don't you do a buy-to-let evening?
Uh,
Anyway,
what that just get my words out. Its mindset is everything, though. How you react to anything is absolutely the sum total of whether you're going to be successful or not.
I
So
think
who gives a shit? Renters' right, whatever it might be, open rent being in existence, forget about it. It's how you react to that that's going to make the difference to your bottom line.
indeed, and we're just going through now the level of new instructions because new instructions has a direct relationship to what your stock levels are. Okay, and again, everyone can see themselves what they're doing compared to their competitors. We're getting into small numbers now. I'll go down to 20. Okay, quick look at Holden Prescott. Again, nice and steady there. Rooftops, some spikes there. That's interesting.
Mm,
I didn't know if there's not. I don't think Macclesfield's a university town, so normally those are the sort of things you get. Jordan Fishwick. So hmm, everyone seems to be staying in their lane. Slight drifting off. Yeah. Okay. Good. Right. Um, Before we go to Steph, if you're a Macclesfield agent and you would like a chat about data and how it can help you in your business, please do give me a call. I can only work for one agent per town. I don't currently have a client in Macclesfield, but if you are looking for some help using data to attract and retain clients, do give me a shout. Steph, final thoughts.
don't overprice. And depending on what type of business that you run, I'd still say be a little bit more uncomfortable with your stock than you need to be necessarily, but only with the right stock. Don't burden yourself with stuff that isn't going to sell. Go in there and have those great conversations with people. Be dead honest, but also look, if you're carrying a bit more stock, everybody's carrying a bit more stock. So there's going to be lots of disgruntled sellers out there whose last experience was their friend or family who sold in COVID, and they sold in an afternoon way over ask, and they've been sat in the market now 3, 4, 5 months, not sold. It is cuffing season for great new listings that you can market great, get them at the right price. So come on, let's do it.
Steph, amazing as always, ladies and gentlemen. You can see why she comes back every couple of months. Massively insightful. And again, if you are a self-employed estate agent, then one of my favorites is TA UK. Others are available who are also my favorites. But what I have to say that. Well,
Yeah.
I don't get paid commission when it comes to recommending people, but my advice for self-employed agents, but what I would say is this. I think the biggest thing when it comes to a choice of self-employed model is not the percentage,
No.
is what am I actually getting for my 30%, or what the numbers are relevant, whether it's 25, 30, almost irrelevant, is
What am
who.
I getting? And also, who do I want my business partners to be?
Well, that I think that's one and the same thing. It really comes down to, yeah, I mean, all of you offer cheap Rightmove, cheap Zoopla, a bit of marketing, and under CRM.
There,
It,
yeah.
okay, it really comes down to who is going to coach, guide, and support me on my journey. Because I tell you here and now, setting up your own business is really lonely, and you need some guidance and support. So, Steph is definitely up
We've
there.
run the numbers. It's cheaper to build something at TA UK than it is on your own, but that's because we're a support brokerage. So pick up the phone and find out what that means.
All right. Well,
That was cheeky, sorry.
we're beginning to get a little bit salesy now, so we're gonna have to nip you in the bud there, fella. But I don't blame you at all. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching the show. We'll see you next week for week 14 of the Stat Show, where we'll be getting Alice Bullard, all being well, who is the boss lady of Nested. And she'll be here to look at the UK property market, and we'll be looking at another town. Steph, thank you for your insight today, and thank you for watching.